has to offer. My first question, well, for people who don't, well, you've been a journalist for decades.
Yeah.
And this anthology of your work is particularly remarkable because you're sort of have been for a while kind of persona non grata in, liberal media circles.
Yeah. Not sure why exactly, but that's definitely true.
My question sort of, that it kind of is what it is, but Anna has been a fan of yours much longer than me. I was not super familiar with your work, but like vaguely associated, was a white supremacist guy, And then a couple years ago, I saw a video of you talking, and I was struck by your calm, humane, like you weren't some
even
seething weird bigot.
Equanimity. Yeah.
And you seemed very innocent and curious, and so then that's how I started. To read your work.
Yeah,
Noticing.
Yeah.
Can it be taught, or is it something like writing where it can be improved upon, but it's you either have it or you don't?
I think you can definitely get rid of negative impediments. You can let yourself, you can allow yourself to notice things and not and try not to kick in automatically what Orwell called crime stop or protective stupidity. That just, give yourself the right to go, oh, look, that's an interesting pattern. And a lot of people assume that if they take one step toward it, they'll be, damned, and they'll soon turn into a raving racist
Nazi.
They'll be subsumed by genocidal fantasies.
Yeah, so they're terrified of allowing themselves to take one step. But, the thing to do then is take a second step and go, oh. But on the other hand, X tends to be Y, but X also, if Y, then X also, sometimes you see a lot of Z, which is different from Y. It's you can get a much more nuanced view, but you have to also notice the big things first. You hear a lot of criticism of this racist sailor doesn't have a nuanced view. No, I've got more nuances than you've ever conceived of. But let's see. What else could you do? Oh, I got an idea. You could buy my book. It's called Noticing.
And as it says on your book, I think the biggest impediment to noticing is political correctness.
Yeah, that. It's. I mean.
He walked out in the gray light and stood, and he saw for a brief moment the absolute truth of the world. The cold, relentless circling of the intestate earth. Darkness implacable. The blind dogs of the sun in their running. The crushing black vacuum of the universe. And somewhere 200 animals trembling like ground foxes in their cover. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it. And lo, for the earth was empty of form, and void,
and darkness was all over the face of the deep, and we said, "Look at that fucker dance."
All right. Welcome to Heat Death of the Universe, a podcast that notices things. It is 11:08 a.m., May 11th, KST, year of our Lord, 2024. Josh here, Tim, not the director of the hit anti-comedy film, The Comedy? Was it called The Comedy or The Comedian? Do you know what I'm talking about? Tim Heidecker's movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. What's the question? I don't even know what the question is there. No, I'm not Tim Heidecker.
I'm just asking if you know the name of that movie that he did. That was like a quote unquote serious movie. It was weird.
Oh, I don't think I know what you're talking about, actually. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. That was, it's probably like 15 years ago or something now. But
Tim Heidecker did a movie that was serious.
Old brain.
But it wasn't serious.
Kind of.
Okay. Let's take a look. Let's see.
It's called The Comedy, 2012.
Okay. And it was called The Comedy, but it was serious.
It was like, yeah, that was kind of the gag, I guess. But it was also like, not serious.
Yeah, I've seen this.
I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
I was very
the cover.
I was very like unsure of how I felt about it in a way. It felt a little like up its own ass, but then it's like one of those things. It's like, well, the point is that it's trying to look like it's up its own ass, and it's a critique of up its own assery. And it's like, is it? I don't know. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the 2012 film, The Comedy. What are we here to do? Well, we're here to first say hi. Hi, what's going on? I heard you were drinking a beer. Are the rumors true?
But damn, we didn't do our normal intro, really. Kind of got derailed. It's called Books of the New Movies, and that's a little hint for the movie review that will be coming shortly, I think. Or maybe already came.
Nice.
Either way.
Breadcrumb.
But if we were going to do my normal intro, I was going to say I'm happy to be back on the only podcast that's willing to ask, are you currently wiggering right now?
Is that in reference to that video I sent you? Okay. It'd be funny if it was just a coincidence. It's breadcrumbs upon breadcrumbs here so far. That will allude to something we're getting to in a
number one
second.
Baking podcast. You gotta dig through these breadcrumbs and come backwards to figure out what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And only then will you fully appreciate the depths of depravity that were on display.
It's a full-on Inception inside of a Memento, inside of a Being John Malkovich situation here, covered in an adaptation. Okay, but yes, got a pretty full plate here. Start off with the hardest hitting news first, I would say. Shitty pants / brainworms is the heading. Trump supporters wear MAGA diapers at rallies. A take on von Schützen pants? I just saw this kind of out of in passing. I guess how else do you see something like this? I saw something on some feed somewhere, and it was just like guys wearing diapers that said MAGA on them or whatever.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, is this a
before,
joke? Is this
This is like this is a return from an old one. Yeah, this is Lindy, as they say. They did a MAGA diapers thing a while ago before as well. They're looking for an excuse to wear diapers. But I think it's like a reference or a callback or whatever.
But what was it initially? Do you remember? Because
that's the thing.
This is specifically about like stuff that just came out in the trial.
I think. Do you remember when there was like the Donnie shits his pants and he must be wearing a diaper? That's why his butt looks like that, because people made fun of him having a big wide ass.
Right. Yeah. That was like an ongoing like.
Yeah. So there was I don't know, maybe it wasn't that widespread and it was just like a small thing, but there was a movement of MAGA supporters who were like, oh, you're going to say that Trump wears diapers, we're going to wear diapers because it's cool.
It's such a funny angle to take on it. And it's sort of outside of like the, whatever, like sort of stereotype you might like have, I guess, of like your typical MAGA stormtrooper or whatever. Like you'd think they would just be like, fuck you, my president's an alpha, he doesn't wear diapers. But then they're just really like running with it to extreme degree.
There's a good amount of Trump loyalists who get it. They get like the Trump oeuvre, which is like that you wouldn't do that. You don't just like over the top deny it and act like that. You're kind of like running from something is never going to look cool. So you got to just like embrace it and like mock it backwards to them, right? Is kind of the only way to do it. And and like I said, so many Trump supporters are really easy to laugh at and make fun of, like the ones that you see on like The Good Liars and stuff, where it's like they trap them in their logic circle where they just look like complete idiots because they contradict themselves. But like some of them are actually smart enough and nihilistic enough that they really don't care, and they're just like, yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I think there's just like, it's just like a different subsection of people within the movement, as it were, because there's definitely the people that don't even have the brain capacity for like spinning something negative into a fun, like embrace it positive thing. I'm thinking of like sort of the Ben Garrison model of like Trump is a muscular god, like like people who like genuinely sort of believe that imagery of like this great specimen of masculinity, tough guy, whatever, virile. But anyway, so yeah, a bunch of these people are like in public with diapers on. A couple pictures here. There's one I shouldn't, and it's not just limited to the men folk. There's a gal here with a shirt that says diapers over Dems, which is a shirt I would wear. I would wear in a fucking. I would wear in a hipstery, ironic way.
Yeah,
I'm sure. But she has this like weird adult diaper that looks like it's made out of duct tape to me in the picture. But anyway, but then like right over her pussy region, as doctors call it, there's like a sticker of Trump's face slapped over it, which I thought was just like a reference to the like, when like there were like the broads out there going like, he can grab my pussy anytime, shit like that. But anywho, I don't think there's too much to really dig into on this.
No.
If I'm remembering right. But I mean, where it comes from, I guess I'll just say, is that so like within the trial, turncoat traitor Judas, former attorney Michael Cohen, I guess used to taunt Trump in tweets.
Makes sense.
Or was doing it recently, and he had his nickname for Trump was Von Shits Pants.
Perfect.
Shits with a Z, pants with a Z. Oh. And this all just came out into the public record recently, and I think that's why we're seeing this as a return to diaping, if you will.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought that was just like a stupid, sort of funny, light story to start with, where I don't know, it is really funny to see people so dedicated to such stupid shit that they're willing to like do infantilism play.
Right. So this weird article, like the picture at the top, the Trump diaper picture, that's like an AI thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that was just something that like a hater made. That wasn't that.
But it's like like an AI Donald Trump in a diaper thing.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty grotesque in the way that not even just the subject matter, but just like how all AI stuff looks kind of weird.
I could tell it was AI,
off-putting.
and they say that like the trick for telling about the AI is you look at the hands, right? They have extra fingers, but the thing with the Donald Trump AI is you can tell by looking at the hands because they're too big. Those hands, those are too big to be Donald Trump hands. Because he's got.
I would also say he looks. Although they say recently he has lost a bunch of weight by doing sport. Was the quote. I was going to say he looks less obese than normal in the AI.
Yeah, he's on that well. Aubrey Graham diet. If you're following the news.
No,
I don't. It's not even news, but the battle between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick posted a photo and it showed Drake's Ozempic prescription. So just that's how Trump lost the weight. Really, is what we're saying.
That's funny because I was about to add on to what you said with I think it's just Ozempic.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay, I haven't really been following that beef too closely. I know it exists. I'm not completely checked out, but what I thought was what I gleaned, and I think I maybe misgleaned. That's a new word now. Is that? Or maybe I didn't. Is there some of this beef make accusations about Drake being a fucking a P Diddy, if you will?
Oh, a P sort. This is a new one that I learned from following this because the people that I interact with and stuff are not afraid to just say the word. But I guess on YouTube you might get in trouble. So Anthony Fantano, I picked this one up. What he says is a PDF file downloader.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though is I wasn't even meaning to mask the word pedophile. I was just referring to Puff Daddy.
There's like
as short for pedophile, I guess.
But the funny thing, but here's the funny thing about that is that yes, there is that, but then there's also within one of the tracks there is reference to literally Puff Daddy, and not because of that, but because there was a physical altercation in the past where Puff Daddy smacked Drake. So, yeah, Puff Daddy is involved in multiple ways. Anyways. But yes, there was big time references to that throughout the entire thing, that Drake is a pedophile. He's a groomer, that he has friends that are groomers and connections to him. There's also people who are doing QAnon and baking things about crazy days and nights, blind items that were about Drake and his pedophile ring and network, and about the fact that Kendrick knew about it and was planning to do something about it. So it's kind of interesting because months ago, Crazy Days and Nights actually posted stuff saying that, and then now this happened. So it's kind of okay, I guess it was true.
That does sound QAnon-ish of it's the thing of Trump's just waiting for the right moment to tear down the pedophile ring. Yeah.
But just keep that one in your pocket if you're ever, obviously just trying to be funny, but PDF file downloader. That's a good.
Yeah, I like that.
I like it too. I guess because if you're on YouTube, you'll get demonetized. You can say it, but you'll just get demonetized for saying certain stuff. And it's one thing that they do on a bone of contention. Majority Report is that they won't say CBD or THC when they're plugging a product that they sell that has that in it. So they say CBD and THC. And I guess it doesn't get caught. It's really fucking stupid.
Demonetized for that?
Yeah,
God,
I know.
As much as I do really kind of love YouTube in a way, I started noticing that and I know this isn't a new thing or anything. It's just something I maybe a lot of the stuff I watch doesn't self-censor that much, but I was watching things sort of recently that do, and it's usually people that are really trying to monetize the shit out of whatever they do. I don't know, I was I don't know, big streamers like Destiny and shit or whatever, they cut out just normal profanity, which I just find so lame and annoying, and it's going through this effort to blank out words like fuck and I don't know, it's just very. But yeah, and then any sort of touchy word, pedophile, rape, sexual, people say SA instead of sexual assault. It's a weird thing that I don't know. I'm not saying it's like, oh, they're trying to silence everybody. It's just, it seems more of like it seems like it's all just coming from an algorithm. It seems like the humans aren't even making this decision. Like I feel like there's just like not even people in the YouTube offices or whatever that are like, oh yeah, this is a good idea. Like anytime someone says the word rape in any context, we just demonetize.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about YouTube, I get it, and you used to kind of be able to get away with anything. Like, I remember a long time ago, because I'm ancient, like, you could like post basically pornography on YouTube in the beginning, and it was like, whatever. It was not like, they didn't want you to, but it was not like, against the rules or whatever. That's not even the point, but like, you can still, like you said, I love YouTube. I like it still because you can get away with basically almost anything, but it is the demonetization thing. And the shittier thing is the like DCA strike or whatever, where they'll just, if they just get any complaint, they just pull you down, and they don't like care that it's not true or whatever, which is annoying. But yeah, like the self-censorship thing, I think the bigger issue is the self-censorship thing. And there's different tacks to take on it, right? Because some people believe that like fostering and creating an environment where you feel the need to self-censor is also partially their fault. I don't know where I come down on that. It's like kind of a weird thing, but that's not the point of this episode, right?
Yeah. So speaking of brainworms, which is what we were talking about, right? I mean, this is also kind of a non-story, but I feel like worth mentioning, and it just made me laugh when I saw it. And I'm almost surprised how much this is being like, I don't know, viralized around the internet. But yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he had a dead worm in his brain, and I first encountered this via some Rolling Stone article about it. I guess like some angle they were kind of trying to pull is that he got this like worm in his brain from mercury poisoning. And
I don't think those things are related. I don't think those things are related.
Well, I didn't say the second thing, or are you just getting ahead of what I'm about to say?
No. Continue on.
Well, I mean, maybe the funniest part of the whole article to me is that he apparently has such a ravenous appetite for tuna fish sandwiches. That's what he blames his mercury poisoning on. But yeah, it says he Kennedy described mercury levels in his blood as being more than 10 times the EPA's safety parameters. I loved tuna fish sandwiches. I ate them all the time.
Now, do you buy that?
Do
you buy that?
No,
like it's a cover
sounds
story,
ridiculous.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd. I don't think you could eat enough tuna fish to get mercury poisoning.
I mean, I think like, you could.
To that degree. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to like be purposely trying to get mercury poisoning from tuna fish.
All right, but here's the other side. What if all of us are coming at it from the idea that like you just a regular tuna fish sandwich like me and you would eat, but he's a fucking weirdo who doesn't trust anything, so he's using like fresh whole tuna, and that means they're like including the skin from fresh tuna. So then it would be more plausible, because a lot of the mercury is stored in the skin of the fish, right? And the tuna fish that you get from the can doesn't have the skin. The skin's usually not in there. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of us think like, oh, that's impossible or whatever. But like, if you're a fucking freak who doesn't trust, processed foods, and you've been eating tuna fish that is made out of fresh fish, the entire time, I guess it feels more possible, is my point.
Yeah.
I still think it's bullshit. I still think it's a bullshit cover story, and he's actually doing something else.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, these brain worms, I mean, I think there's like a lot of causes, but the more spurious connection that the Rolling Stone seems to be trying to make, and is in like, oh no, it's almost the last paragraph here, but it basically says it goes into his anti-vax history, right? The common argument anti-vax people may make about certain vaccines and autism is that there's a mercury-based preservative in the vaccine. So, like, I guess they're trying to say, like, hypocrite. I don't know. I don't really
Sure.
It seemed weird and stupid, almost like he's
like the man himself.
Yeah, like he's not the only one with brain worms. But yeah, basically the ultimate point is he's kind of an idiot. And
not kind of.
He took to Twitter and said, "I'll eat 5 more brain worms and debate Trump." What did he say? I have it here somewhere. Oh, right. I have the picture right here. "I offer to eat 5 more brain worms and still beat President Trump and President Biden in a debate. Blah, blah, blah." And then what I thought at first was real Elon Musk, even though it says clearly right after his name parody, but I was just reading it very quickly. "You should debate them on X Spaces with Tucker Carlson moderating. RFK. I'm in." So yeah.
Hell
exciting.
Yeah. Related
there.
to it, and not on the docket, but whatever. There was the recent, I guess, oh God, now that I look at this is not all that recent. I thought it was. The Trump kind of anti-RFK rant that he went on, talking about RFK as a plant. And
I did not
blah,
see
blah, blah.
that.
But like I said, this is kind of older. I don't know why I thought that this was new. I guess for some reason it's making the cycle. No, I mean, for some reason it's making the cycle right now because I'm seeing like people doing fresh articles about something that Trump said a while ago.
It's probably because of the brainworms story.
Right. There's the brainworm stories and they're bringing it back. But that was one thing because in the rant that Trump was doing, he was talking about, oh, he's not even really anti-vax, He says vaccines are okay. And it's just kind of funny because it's like, what are you implying there? That like you're the real anti-vaxxer? But it just feels like the fact that this is coming up and being talked about and the brainworm thing and the fucking mercury poison thing, it all feels timed. It all feels planned. Like I said, the fact that there's new articles about this coming up now that like the media is just trying to basically get RFK out of the way.
Yeah.
And who knows if that's coming from one of the sides, if that's like
probably
coming from
probably
Trump world.
both because he's siphoning votes theoretically away from both candidates.
And it's like a game of inches between the two but just the idea that they're like fucking, playing this shit where it just clearly feels like it's like strategically planned to discredit him for both sides, to be like, he's got fucking brainworms, which has become short term for, you're not allowed to say the R word anymore. You're not allowed to call people retarded. So on the internet, they've started saying brainworms, you know what I mean? Or smooth brain or whatever. So like to that side, the left side, whatever you might want to call it, they're like, oh, look at the man literally got brainworms. And then the mercury poisoning feels like a deep cut because it's like referencing like the old fucking aristocracy of crazy, like, was it like the Chinese, emperor that was ingesting mercury to try to like cure something and ended up like killing himself. It's like, look at this. He's part of like this ancient aristocracy that's poisoning themselves on accident, or thinking that they're doing new science or whatever. And then you've got Trump on the other side, but it's old. It's not even current, and being like, look, Trump doesn't like him either. So yeah, it's just kind of trying to basically get both sides like, get serious, everyone. This is not your guy. So it does make me go, okay, maybe he is my guy. If they don't want me to vote for him, maybe I should.
Well, I've got another politician further down the docket with that we can have a sort of similar conversation about once we get there.
Barack Obama Mandela.
Yeah. No,
that's who we're voting for.
Yeah, I mean that's my man. All right, so Red Scare scrounge up time. As much as I haven't been listening to the podcast Red Scare for like years and years, I never like unsubscribed, so it popped up in my little podcatching device that they had noted lunatic race science shithead Steve Saylor on their podcast.
He's not like a race scientist. He's not, he's more of just a race science endorser. He's just someone who appreciates race science. I
misspoke. I mean, I know he's definitely not. He's a
fan.
Blogger. He's a fucking blogger. He's not a journalist. He's a blogger.
Yeah, I know. He's honestly like only a quarter step above just a forum poster. He's not even really... He's kind of more known for that than he is even for fucking blogging or
his
or
newsletter.
The idea that he writes books. Yeah.
I guess he has published books, technically, at least 2 or something. But I'll also say, like, I never even heard this man's name until you brought him up in relation to Red Scare and how you were saying, like, now they're just, like, outright, endorsing him on the podcast. So then I thought it was notable when it's like, oh, they're having him on. Like, this will probably be of interest to Tim, and like I will reluctantly listen to it and check it out, which I did. I ended up listening to it like 1.5 times, which was so fucking painful to me, which I was keeping you updated about in our chat as I was listening to it, because it was just driving me insane. I'll also say, and shout out to a listener, Britton. He commented on this in the Discord like yesterday, and I believe, I don't have it right in front of me, but he said like that it was a very boring episode and that it was just Conservapedia talking points. And I think that that's a pretty good summary, and also it's a good thing to say up top, because like I got kind of like sucked into how stupid it was and was like getting like pissed off about it, and like it was good to like take a step back and be like, yeah, these are just like idiots recycling like the same lazy fucking stupid points about race essentialism and so on, and other bigoted idiotic ideas. But and then I'll also say, like, I think so anyway, I did like a semi deep dive on this fucking asshole, like in preparation for this, and like learned and read way more by him and about him than I ever really would want to. But so anyway, I mean, I don't know, I jotted down some notes about like what they actually talked about on the episode, and just as like an overview of it, like one of the things that like was irking me the most out of everything was how much they were giggling at everything he said. Like not right. At it, like, oh, Mr. Man, you're so funny. It's just like this, as I already said before, like hentai girl fucking like submissive fucking tittering to this like total fucking brain dead idiot who gets like valorized by racists only, like who think he's like a god for some reason. He doesn't even really have a way with words. I've read this man's writing, like, not all of it, but I read like some of his, supposedly like best essays, and they were fucking boring, badly written. And of course, the ideas were like absolute shit and like easily dispensed with. But I mean, I guess for people who don't really know anything about him, like, yeah, he's basically just this like notorious white supremacist, but he's the kind of white supremacist who couches everything in like, I'm a calm public intellectual. I'm just a noticer, which is like he believes he's coined the term noticing, essentially. Like, I notice things, capital N notice. And they kept like talking about that in the podcast, and made me want to, it was like tearing out my hair, like listening to these morons like pat themselves in the back for being noticers. But it's like right off the bat was like Anna of the podcast. She essentially was like, well, you've seen my neighborhood. What do you think about the what's the term? Human biodiversity? Is that it? Yes. How is the human biodiversity pedigree of my neighborhood? Essentially like, ooh, Mr. Man, do your magic trick race science on my neighborhood. Do me next. They're like fucking clapping their hands together excitedly. Like the enthusiasm these fucking morons had for this guy was just like, I don't know. I found it like sickening, especially since like, I know Red Scare well enough to like, I know their history and stuff, and have seen like their trajectory, and it's like the only semi-interesting thing about them to me anymore is that they've gone so weirdly far right from where they started. Like, not just like kind of like toying with provocative ideas, but they're just doing boring racist shit. they're just sitting around with this guy going like, what's the deal with Mexicans? Like I'm barely exaggerating. Like by the end of the podcast, like towards the end, they're saying shit about like how Mexico is like just full of potholes and like it was just like I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, this is supposed to be the deep thinking public intellectuals of the race realism world or whatever. But yeah, and you know, they don't just leave it to race. They like say they get real fucking wacky, to put it nicely, with their take on the transgenders, as Steve calls them, or autogynephiles, or X-Men, which he believed was like the most clever fucking pun on earth. And so did the ladies, because they were just like gales of fucking laughter when he's like, I call them X-Men.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I was like writing down notes that were like kind of like, here's how dumb their arguments are, but like I don't think we even really need to like take the time to like argue against them, honestly, because they're so fucking stupid. I don't know. I mean, kind of like just a little all over the place here, but like also in the beginning, like this fucking loser starts talking about like how cool it is that he did like a reading somewhere in New York, and it was like, beautiful women were coming up to me and saying that they liked my work and all this stuff, and then Anna and Dasha were like, yeah, we came to one of your events too, but like we were the only women there, because like his demographic obviously skews towards fuckhead men, basically, which is probably why the Red Scare gals like him. Probably one of the reasons. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I'm like overwhelmed by how many stupid things they fucking said on the episode that I don't even know where to start.
Sure. I did appreciate like the bit about lesbians aren't gay. I did like that quite a lot. Because it's like, yeah, lesbians are not gay men, which is basically the only thing that they tried to use as disproof. They were just like, well, you know, it shows like what do gay men do this? Gay men go out dancing. They're active. They're livid. They're lively. They're all this stuff, and lesbians don't do any of that stuff. And it's just like, yeah, no one is. The argument is not lesbians are gay men. It's that lesbians are gay women, and it's fucking incredible to hear them break it down demographically to be like, yeah, you know, lesbians just aren't actually gay because they don't do all this stuff that gay men do. They do all this stuff that gay women do. And that's just like proof that they're not gay. And I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, what is this?
What is this exactly? I was at total loss. I read his fucking article, Why Lesbians Aren't Gay, like twice, because I'm like, am I missing something? Like, what is the point of this? Like, I didn't even take it the way you just broke it down. I was like literally couldn't even understand. Like, and what you just said is probably right, and that's dumber than I was even willing to think that they were going with it. But like, they're just making like just sweeping generalizations about people that lead to no conclusions other than like, I mean, the ultimate conclusion really that's like barely unspoken is gays and trans people are fucking freaks and they're corrupting our fucking like wonderful society or whatever.
Right.
But they won't just come out and say that. And I think in one of my notes here, I wrote in all caps, just say you think they're mentally ill and need conversion therapy. Because like they're just like dancing around that with like the dumbest fucking like anecdotes and like I can't even call them arguments. Like at one point he just goes on about like, I knew this guy in grad school who he was like the manliest man you've ever seen before, and then he one day just decides he's always had a little girl living inside him, and he becomes a trans guy because he was actually a really, I'm not trying to put him down, he was actually a really savvy businessman who made a fortune. And then he was also a visionary. He could see that this trans thing was going to make buco bucks at the box office in the future. And that's this other argument that I've been hearing lately that just boggles my mind about how like people doing gender, it's for the sake of making like to get in on the profits.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck?
Gotta get in on the ground floor on this gender thing, man.
Is like you're going to make billions off of what? Gender affirming surgeries? Like I don't like selling hormones. Like what the fuck? Where's the money to be made?
I guess okay. The argument on that is like cultural cachet, I guess, right? But you know, whatever.
Still stupid.
I think I picked up through barely kind of looking things over, and then your like incredulity to the article about lesbians aren't gay. I think I've actually figured out the take. It's using a rhetorical like flourish to basically do what I said, but act as if it's like saying like lesbians aren't gay men, and it's trying to act as if you're so dense or so like unawares that like you can't comprehend the idea that it's a different category and that's why it's not the same thing. And then use that argument as a cover to be like gay men, and as you talked about, transgender people in general are sinister and evil against like society and God and create nothing but problems and are bad, but trying to build in a carve out that not only allows for gay women or lesbians to be like okay and not a problem, and also to like give, you know, women an excuse because, you know, it's more common for young women to like do a bit of like experimentation and maybe find themselves in a conversation with like being attracted to women, and I've had sexual experiences with women. It's like give them an out to be like, well, being a woman being a lesbian is not evil and bad like a man being gay. So you're okay, even though you've done that, and you're still able to be on our side in this hate brigade where we say that all that stuff is evil. And it's not just that carve out to allow them into your ranks and like have a big tent for like women who used to be a lesbian to be like, you're not bad, it's fine, it's okay. Or even women who are actively still attracted to women to be like, you can still be part of our group where we hate trans people and gays. You can still be like part of our group and just like it. And then the other carve out, it's not a carve out, but the other thing is to hedge the argument when you like do make these blatant just negative stereotypes about the degradation of society based on the way that gay men act and how what they do is actually hurting us, you have cover for when people come back to that argument and say, yes, but look at gay women and they don't follow those same stereotypes. They don't do these negative activities. They don't go out and party. They don't use illicit drugs. They don't, you know, contract venereal diseases. They don't, you know what I mean? So it's like creating a cover for that as well, where people go, there's nothing inherently bad and sinful about gayness, because if there was, why do those same issues not equally afflict gay women? And it's because, la-di-da, look at my argument, gay women aren't gay. So it's not a sin, and that's why they're not punished. Because it's not the same as being a gay man, which is evil and bad, and that's why they get punished, right? I actually figured it out, but it's so obtuse because he's trying to play it off like he's just the noticer who's not picking a side. He's just saying, "Hey, look at these facts that I found," and as I said, like it's fucking crazy to be like, yeah, these are different things. That's why, like, you know, it's like again, it would be the same as just picking out any creature and being like, you know, why, you know, female humans aren't humans because they don't have penises. And we found that when you look at when you look at male humans, they have penises, so that's part of what makes them human. So then these ones over here, they're just not human. They're a different thing because they don't have penises. Right? Like that's the level of argument that you're making, but it's because you're trying to obfuscate the fact that you're clearly picking a side and trying to put your thumb on the scale, which I hadn't thought of until we kind of were talking it out. So that's good.
Oh, I hate this motherfucker so much. And it's like, it's not even, okay, it's obviously because I think he's like, you know, hateful but like it's beyond that. It's like how boring and fucking full of himself he is. Like the combination of being dull and stupid but thinking that you're witty and smart is like just one of the worst fucking combinations. And he's got that like in fucking spades. Like he really thinks highly of himself. And yeah, like, but he's not funny. Like on the podcast, that's why their laughter was driving me insane. They were like, I was going to like take clips out and stuff, but then I was like, fuck this. I'm not devoting all this even more time to this than I already have. But like, there were certain points where like he literally just said like a neutral statement and they were like, like it was mind boggling to me. Or like just making like just the most like adolescent like quote unquote jokes about trans people. Like I wrote down one here. He wrote, like, is this a man or a woman? And then I wrote in all caps, Dasha squealing laughter.
Right. Well, yeah, and then they were like trying to be subtle, talking about like, oh, you don't want to pick up a woman at a Black Flag concert. She might not shave her armpits.
That was so stupid.
That was in there. God. What is that even? Why is this even? What is going on? What is going on here?
That's just bad comedy. It's like, I don't even find that hateful. It's just like shitty comedy. It's like shitty, outmoded comedy from 40 years ago. But another, I don't know. I'm just like picking like random quotes here now. But like, he said, feminine traits aren't conducive to leadership, and like you just hear both girls go, mm-hmm. Like,
yeah, but he also like literally he disproved that point throughout talking about like the African tribes that farmed with like lighter equipment and did like more like light hoeing, that could be done as effectively by a woman as a man.
Light hoeing, talk about Red Scare, am I right?
Yeah, exactly. But then like how like that created a different dynamic between the genders when it came to selection of partners. So it's just like even you are because they do like there's studies and stuff they talk about like African countries, it's a more matriarchal society in general. The women actually have more control of almost everything and decisions and things that happen within the family units. So it's just like you literally, even though you didn't, you nodded at the stuff that like disproves your point, because it just goes to show that like what we consider leadership roles are really only affected societally, and it's not like intrinsic to your gender and your nature. And in different societies where leadership is based around different desired outcomes, different people, different genders, whatever, can have more beneficial like traits for being the leader or whatever. And even then still, it's still societally hierarchically designed based just on what society chooses, and it's not necessarily even about like nature and what I don't even know. I was like trying to say like gender science, like what traits you have based on what fucking gender you are.
Yeah. Maybe one more, maybe like final-ish thought on Steve Saylor, but
this is the thing about Steve Saylor is that like he was just like he hit a genetic lottery in the fact that he's tall. He hit like a life lottery in the fact that like he's got adopted by a well-to-do family. And he's one of these people, again, born on third base, thought he hit a triple kind, who thinks that like he somehow deserves or was like entitled to the privileges that he got. And it was kind of interesting to be like, oh, I did a 23andMe, but I'm not going to say what it said because it implicates people in my family. But it's like, how does it implicate people in your family when you're adopted?
That was suspicious.
It's like a very weird cover story that works for people who don't know that you're adopted, because it's like, you're not related to the people in your family. Or, you know what I mean? You don't know them. So the people who are related to you, you're like, it's not going to be part of your genome mapping there or whatever. So like, why are you? Yeah. So that was very interesting.
I will say in the Red Scare subreddit about this episode, it seemed like most of the comments were not pro Steve Saylor, or at the very least they were just like, this guy's boring, talk about the Met Gala or whatever. But some people were speculating about that,
to be fair,
as well.
The Reddit fucking hates them. Like the Reddit hates the show and what they do for the most part.
It's so interesting.
But it is like, you have to keep in mind that it's a small subset of their audience. And that's why it's the weird thing where they go like, oh, Red Scare is the podcast for girls and gays. And it's like, no, Red Scare is the podcast where the girls and gays talk about it on Reddit. But most people who listen to it are not the girls and gays. Most people who listen to the podcast at this point are Steve Saylor fans. Which is to just say,
to me.
Most of the people that are paying for the podcast are most of the people who are paying for the podcast are just Peter Thiel, basically.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just my summary as written was doing race science with the most lobotomized, cross-eyed, drooling, giggling morons to ever make $52,450 a month on Patreon. Good God, they do not deserve that much money.
Listen, if you ever had to fuck Adam Friedland, I think you deserve that money as well.
Oh, towards the end, he also claimed, Steve Slater claimed that, like, comedians like me. Some comedians really like me, and sometimes they pay me like $50 when they use my ideas. But just
okay. So to be fair, he did try to somewhat obfuscate that, but if you followed the tortured linguistics that he used while he was explaining the story, he couldn't help himself but to make it clear he was trying to make it sound more grandiose, but what he actually said was basically, there's one stand-up comedian that he's friends with who pays him the market rate, which is $50 for a punchline. So basically, every now and then, someone who he's friends with who is possibly a famous stand-up, but it's only one person, will use something that he says in something and use it as just a punchline, not even like a major joke, but just like a tag is what you call it, like a small punchline, and that they will pay him $50, which is standard.
I think
it's like fucked up because that's like from like the 80s when you would get paid $50 for a punchline like that. But even I've done that where like a comedian who you like wrote a joke for will just give you $50, whatever.
I just thought it was like an anti-brag, and there was a lot of feeling of him like the old man trying to be cool with the young kids in the room, and like that was just like kind of topped it off at the end. But
it was, I think I'm not even, that wasn't like trying to correct you. My point was more like he was trying to present it like, I'm popular with comedians. Comedians like me. And then like, as you listen to him explain the story, it's like, you're talking about your one friend who is a comedian who does this sometimes, but you're trying to present it like multiple comedians love my work.
Yeah. I also think he said that whoever they use his ideas, his noticings as a setup, and then the comedian takes over and throws the punchline on it, but whatever. Another quote I have from him was, I have more nuance than you could ever conceive of. Also, I'm not a big ideologue. My commentary says the guy who started a literal eugenics institute. Anna earnestly asking him towards the end, can noticing be taught? Jesus, just like every moment of this fucking podcast was making me fucking scream on the inside. It was so horrible.
Well, it's just so much.
It was so boring though, too, is the thing. Is like, I mean, I guess like it got me worked up, but in only because of how boring it was and how self-important they were making themselves sound.
But yeah, it's like, can noticing be taught just belabors the point that's like really on display, and especially when you know that this jackass is adopted, because he tries so hard, and even in this he's like talking about it, and they're talking about like, decisions that you make that affect like the future of how your son's gonna act or whatever, like all these things. And it's just like, there's like a ton of research that shows that like most personality and traits is like, it's not nurture. It's like mostly all nature. And you're just kind of like almost born to be the person that you're gonna be, like for the most part, a lot of like your traits are like just predetermined before you're even like raised. There's like a lot of things that will influence your patterns and choices that you make within like the first 5 years. But after that, primarily like you're pretty much set and you're just gonna like do what you're gonna do. So the idea that like you have this, but the idea that they feel like they have to dance around the noticer because he's like decided with his like infinite autism, basically, that like all of these things have to just be happening intentionally, and it's not just like random occurrences that you happen to like put them together without realizing what you're doing. That they have to go like, can noticing be taught? Or is this another of these things that is just, it's like ingrained in you because of what race you are? You know what I mean? Like that's what they're doing when they ask him that. Because they're like they don't want to like upset him or deal with any kind of like negative interaction by asking a question that's like, you know, that would give him a chance to be like, no, you're born with an innate nature to be able to notice, and it has to do with like what race you are, you know, and blacks are just unnatural noticers. They just don't have the ability to notice, you know, and that's why they don't know what it would be like if they didn't have breakfast this morning or whatever, you know, like that's like the level that they're at with him, where they're like walking on eggshells that they don't, and it's crazy because you're like, dude, you're like, your life was this like example of it, like being adopted, right? And like just showing that like it produces the kind of person that it produces based on your genetics or whatever. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with like this, what you're surrounded by and all this stuff. It's just, it's fucking crazy. It's just, the whole thing is just crazy. And that's the part of it that's hard to say because I mentioned it earlier, but the phone call or whatever it was with Tariq Nasheed, where it's just like, is it a game? And do a lot of the Red Scare fans, are they women who appreciate it on a meta level where it's like the fact that they love to talk about being like manipulative and using like the chaos dragon, as Jordan Peterson talks about, the feminine wiles to like talk these silly, stupid men like Staler into fucking falling for it? Because part of it too, as you talked about, he's like so enchanted by them that it's almost like they feel like they're doing the like, you know, you may wear the pants, but I control, you know, where they walk kind of thing. And they're like subtly doing it in a way where like that's really the point. The point of this is not even necessarily that they agree with him, but the point of this is to be like, here's this powerful man that people listen to and he's so smart, but with a flick of a wrist and a bat of an eyelash, I'm able to control the way that he thinks and feels.
Yeah, but I didn't see any divergence in their thought. That's what I'm saying, is like they were just nodding their heads the whole time, and they were like pushing him into like
well, okay, so you get my point. My point is like that the idea is that it's so subtle and it's so behind, you know, the enemy lines or whatever, that the reason why women watching the show, listening to the podcast, whatever, are appreciating it is because, oh, we're in on it and the subtle nuance of it. So it's like, it's not going to be blatant to where it's like overt and you can see it. You know, it's like, it's this big time oeuvre that you understand from years of paying attention to this. And also being a woman that you're like, oh yeah, this is what they're doing. Right? I don't think there's anything to this, but I do feel like sometimes I question it because sometimes I'm like, the way that they talk about like, oh, you know, like I said, in the phone call, it felt like the mask slipped a little bit because, you know, and they say this on the podcast too, but when she's talking to Tariq Nasheed, she's trying to like so hard trying to get him to believe everything she's saying. And then at one point she's like, well, yeah, he's like, so you're saying that you're deceptive? Because she mentioned something about like lying to do whatever. And she's like, well, yes, of course I'm deceptive. I'm a woman. We're supposed to be. Right. And it's just kind of like, okay, I get it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know the context of that conversation, but I just thought it was funny because it was just two idiots fucking jabbering at each other. But like, I guess I'm just saying I don't buy the idea that Anna and Dasha are playing 12th dimensional chess here. I think that they're genuine fans of this shit. But that's just my sense. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they are just nihilists getting them stacks up, 50 grand a month. But also, you listen to them all the time. I stopped listening to them probably way back in like 2019-ish. It was definitely, it was before COVID, because I remember I remember checking in one time for like 30 minutes of an episode, like in the middle of COVID, and they were saying all this dumb shit about vaccines and whatever. And I was like, oh, this is what they're doing now. All right. See you later.
Right.
And I don't know, Steve Saylor, he reviews, he fancies himself a real literate guy, and he reviews lots of movies. I just picked out one paragraph of something he wrote about the movie V for Vendetta, where he's talking shit about the Wachowskis, and it's just like he sort of drops the like more subtle like hatred of trans people and just like says it. So he wrote, in 1999, Larry, the elder Wachowski, was living a normal life as a married man, so he had to subliminate his latent perversity into his art. Unfortunately, that blockbuster, The Matrix, afforded him the money to transform his inner kinks into grotesque reality. Meaning he's an auto-gynophile, right? He left his wife and moved in with a dominatrix called Isla Strix. Soon, he was dressing as a woman, and rumors circulated that Larry planned to become a Wachowski sister. Unsurprisingly, the level of imagination in his movies collapsed. Interesting A to B there. He changed himself into a damn woman. So that's why his movies got worse.
Did you ever? I mean, that does make sense. You know, women they're just not natural leaders, and being a director is being a leader. You know.
True. I mean, they didn't even direct that movie. They wrote it, but whatever.
Oh, that's even worse.
And very quickly, I have to comment on. I listened to like half of another Red Scare episode, the one they did right after Oct 7. You gotta be kidding me. And I was, again, still surprised by how fucking right-wing these two are, like in the same way they were in this Steve Saylor episode. But like Dasha especially, but I mean both of them really, but Dasha especially, I said at least she admits to being stupid at one point. But like she's just parroting like every stupid like fascistic right-wing talking point about the situation, right. Like word for word, like Israel has the right to defend itself. And then she, like the other part I found pathetic and funny was she kept saying like, don't be mad at me, like to the audience, like please don't get mad at me for saying this horrendous shit. It's like you don't get to do that. like own your fucking
shit. Yeah, you do.
And
you're allowed to do that.
I don't know. She said if you're pro-Palestine, you're antisocial. She quoted Dave Rubin in a flattering way for some reason. I forget what the quote even was. And then maybe grossest of all the things I took down as a note was getting Zionist pilled by skimming an Alan Dershowitz book on the case for Israel.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Smart kids over there at Red Scare. I don't know why I say kids. They're not that much younger. Well, I mean, I think Anna's even older than me, possibly, but
probably.
Anyway, I'm done with this part of the podcast. It went on much longer than I actually planned on.
Well, then you shouldn't have written so many notes. Anyways, moving on. Let's wash our brain out.
I'm blaming myself only. Don't worry.
Let's wash our brain out. Let's go to as here you said it's the anti-Dasha or the anti Anna and Dasha anti-Red Scare in general. Farha Khalidi. Let's talk about Farha Khalidi. I was combining Fareed Zakaria. I apologize. someone who we talked about on our Red Pill episode. And I think she'll be a recurring character because we both appreciate her content. And I think we can admit that we both find her attractive. She's an attractive lady and she talks about good stuff. So we're into it. She's like the Squad. If, they weren't in the government and proving that they're completely useless. She just hasn't been proven to be useless yet.
Yeah, I am sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop or whatever, and because I have yet to find any of her opinions on geopolitics, really. But on other stuff, I think she's funny and interesting, and just for the listener, like her basic thing is because we found her through like watching all this fucking manosphere red pilliverse content for that episode, and she's like the one person who like goes into the lion's den of these fucking round table shame a thought podcasts and like truly holds her own and like makes these assholes look like the dumb assholes they are, but also does it in a way that's like very kind of laid back and like she's not like shrieking or whatever, like, because when people do that, like even if they're making good points, like they seem sort of delegitimized in some people's eyes or whatever. But anyway, I think she's very cool. And I ended up like watching a bunch of her like sort of just regular videos that she did. Cause I guess she just got kind of like big on TikTok by making these like, I don't know, just like videos about whatever sort of topics. I think a lot of them were sort of like red pill adjacent topics, I guess, or like whatever, like dating in the modern era, or like the effect of social media on our brains and stuff. But yeah, and so I was like watching that while also listening to this infuriating Red Scare shit, and that dawned on me that maybe she's like this sort of antidote to this bullshit in a way. But also she came up again in my mind, mostly because the news story, or she went on a very far right podcast, like, which is what she does, but she goes on like as a combatant basically. But like anyway, she went on that fucking Hanania motherfuckers podcast, and she revealed basically that she was paid by like the Democratic Party to put out content that was like pro what's her name, like the most recent addition to the Supreme Court, was it?
No,
not Supreme Court. What am I thinking?
No, it wouldn't be that, because I was about, are you talking about what's it,
her name's hard to remember.
It's Brown Jackson. It's come on. I'm trying to not say Kamanji.
That's definitely not
that's
it.
not it. But her last name is Brown
Katanji.
Jackson. Katanji Brown Jackson.
No, she was
and
she was appointed to the Supreme Court. I was right.
The Supreme Court. Yeah.
And she's a WOC, as is Farha, who I found out is Saudi and Indian through all my video watching of her last week.
Yeah.
But anyway, she said basically, like, the part that I thought was cool was that she was like, I'll take your money, but I'm not going to, and like, I'll give my opinion on this woman, but I'm not going to say, like, as a woman of color, I'm so proud of blah, 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 blah. And that was essentially the whole story, the long and short.
That was the breaking point. They were like, no, that's what we're paying for. We're paying for you to do that.
Yeah.
Is it a big problem?
I mean, I only watched like the clip of her.
Yeah.
So I don't really know if she like ultimately didn't end up getting paid or what, but I don't know. There's an article written about it in the Toronto Sun where they describe her as OnlyFans creator, which I mean is technically true. She does have one of those, but she's more like she's more popular for like TikTok and like going on these red pill shows, then
is she?
Yeah.
Do you know that?
I do know that.
Okay. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. If you did the research, then yes, but I'm just kind of like, I mean, I know, that's what I know her for, but is she more popular for that? I couldn't.
That's how she,
but if you say yes.
She got known that way. She didn't start the OnlyFans account till after she got big on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
And at least I'm pretty sure. Also, she doesn't do like porn even. And not that I would judge her any differently if she did.
Well, she talked about using like toys and stuff,
but
on one of the podcasts we listened to.
I know, but through some additional research, no, I didn't subscribe to her OnlyFans, but like,
not yet.
I read like OnlyFans like enthusiasts talking about her account and how it's all like fully clothed, like still images, and that's it. And like mainly
cool.
what, and she's even said in interviews or whatever that mainly what people who subscribe to her do is they want to like debate her. they want to like, you know, trade DMs basically, and that's what they're paying for ultimately. So yeah, it's not like a particularly like you know, pornographized OnlyFans. But anyway, I think that's all there's to say about that. I mean,
sure, yeah. Oh, but when you said the thing about them calling her an OnlyFans creator or whatever, which is bad and stupid or whatever, I can't remember what I was listening to, but I was listening to something and they were talking about people, and they referred to themselves as just uploaders, which is a much better, I think, term than calling yourself like a content creator or a creator in general. Just be like an uploader.
A PDF file uploader.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I appreciated that as more of a, like, just a term. I'm an uploader, right? Okay, cool.
I mean, every term for this shit is going to become cringy as the term cringe itself. But like, I agree. Right. I would more easily use the word uploader than want to say content creator in a genuine way. But
yeah, uploader is just so much more bare bones that I don't know that it could become cringe, really. You know, it's like there's no other way to describe it. It's just like the most basic term.
Yeah, but I think like once every YouTube personality and TikTok person all starts using the word uploader, it'll take on like a similar sort of connotation or something. But I don't know. That's just my guess.
Sure. I'm going to send you a good picture, but it's not part of the podcast, but I'll send it to you right now. You can continue on with the show. You don't have to stop talking.
Well, I'm just opening Discord so I can see what you're sending me.
You want to talk about the Met Gala? You want to just do your Palestine thing?
Yeah.
You want to bum everybody out?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Right,
yeah, because Met Gala, it's too boring. It's too fucking boring.
The Met Gala is too boring, but talking about children being massacred, that's not boring.
Well, it's more than that.
Sure. Boring is not the right word, obviously. Upsetting, I guess, would be the right word.
I was just contemplating bringing up anything about the Met Gala. No, fuck it. Fuck the Met Gala. Yeah, Israel-Palestine rundown. Kamala Harris was out picking up some food, and some reporters were outside. One said, "Madam Vice President, Hamas says it accepted a ceasefire deal."
Yeah.
Your reaction?
Shrimps and grits!
Shrimp and grits. That's what you want to know?
Okay, to be fair, because a lot of places presented it the way you said it, but when you watch the video...
I know, she says shrimp and grits first, and then...
She's shouting shrimp and grits the moment that she's coming out of the...
Because she knows what they're about to ask, though. That's why.
No, I was going to say, can you blame her for being excited about her shrimp and grits? That's the real thing. She's just coming out of the restaurant being like, I'm excited to eat shrimp and grits. That's it.
I think she's dumb, but she's not that dumb. She knows goddamn what the...
That's not...
She knows.
That's not about being dumb. That's not about being dumb. That's just being excited about shrimp and grits.
She knows they're going to ask her a question she doesn't want to answer, so she preemptively goes, I watched it closely. She says shrimp and grits, but then she starts saying, is that what you were going to ask me about? Like, what's in here? And like, while she's saying that, like, 5 people are saying the same thing to her about this breaking news that she knows just broke. And she's probably already been, like, you know, given the heads up and told not to basically say anything. But anyway, I mean, the point of this was just, it's funny that her answer to the biggest, like, geopolitical fucking disaster of our age is taking place. And she's like, shrimp and grits.
Shrimp and grits, y'all. You know, you really can't have it both ways, Josh. People love to paint Kamala Harris, beautiful queen, VP, first female vice president also. A lot of people like to overlook that. Not only that, first black and Indian vice president. And people, they don't like talking about any of that stuff. All they like to talk a bunch of mess about the queen. And what they like to say is that she's barred out. She's off them Zans. She's hitting the walk too hard, double cupped up, right? Okay, if she's so vibed the fuck out and she's so, you know, off 3 or 4 Zan bars, then do you really think it's crazy that she didn't know about whatever bullshit you're talking about and all she cares about is the shrimp and grits? You really? Okay, like I said, you can't have it both ways. Where, she's, you know, Kamala off them press
I think
30s.
I can have it both ways, but for the sake of getting past this, also I'll agree with you.
Sure. No, you can't say that, like, because a lot of people love to talk about, like, she's so fucking checked out, she's barely there, she's slurring speech, she's barred out, but then also say, like, she definitely knew what they were talking about. And she was, like, preemptively trying to talk about the shrimp and grits before they could ask the question because she knew that this was a big deal. Like, no, man, she's fucking vibing. She's like, did you fall out of a coconut tree? That's the level that she's at, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, but, like, that's before she was before she was the vice president, like, I definitely went off about how fucking evil and conniving she was, and knowingly so, because she is. I don't think I've ever said she's an actual idiot, but no, I mean she's in.
Yeah. I know. You're not even the person, so it's really tilting at a fucking, you know, it's like it's doing not necessarily a straw man, but it's like trying to attribute both sides of the argument to you, because I don't feel like you actually are on the Kamala is out to lunch vibe that a lot of people are.
I mean, she is sometimes. You know, it can be both. She can sometimes be fucking high and drunk and not giving a shit about her job or about anything else, and then other times she can be like, oh yeah, I've got all this power, how can I wield it? How can I tell fucking Guatemalans to fucking stay the fuck home?
People do not contain multitudes. We're all just one thing. That's it.
Yeah, that's what the wisest people have always said throughout history.
Yeah. Just like Steve Saylor when he was talking about how, you know, blacks are just not good at math or whatever.
Yeah. Oh my God, man.
We can continue on.
I can't tell you how much fucking just racist bullshit I read the last couple of days with reading fucking Steve Saylor and his acolytes. It's mind-boggling, but maybe
Me personally, maybe I'm just built different, but I don't read a bunch of racist white men talking about stuff. You know, if you're into that, that's fine.
All right. Well, speaking of other shit you don't read about that I'm going to force you to listen to, I guess. Israel rejects ceasefire deal, which would have delivered all of their hostages back. The hostages that they love having out there because it's their main talking point as to why they need to continue defending themselves. Also, so basically right on the heels of rejecting this deal, which Hamas had accepted, as we learned, as Shrimp and Grits told us, Israel invaded Rafah, which had been like the thing that, you know, was being sort of like threatened and talked about and for, I don't know, weeks now. And Biden was also saying that if they invade Rafah, we're gonna pause some of the weapons deliveries, or we're gonna pause some of them. Also, Biden has publicly said that, of course, Israel already has enough weaponry to do whatever they want to Rafah, so it doesn't matter if they pause any sort of weapons sales. The other thing is, so many of the weapons sales that have been going to Israel of late have been essentially secretive and bypass the normal processes of like having to be approved by Congress. So that's cool. That's democracy. There's so many fucking things like every week. Like this week is maybe especially
one of my favorite. Sorry, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna jump in there. It feels like it made sense. One of my favorite things from that little flourish with the "we accepted your ceasefire agreement, and we'll return the hostages for a ceasefire" was the spin that I appreciated the most was Israel said, "Give us back the hostages, and we'll do a ceasefire." And Gaza, the Hamas said, "We'll give you back the hostages and the bodies." And that was where Israel said, "No deal." Because somehow they were like, "We don't want bodies. You're supposed to give us all of them back alive." So it's like created this weird like Schrodinger situation where it's like Israel is refused. Actually, Israel is not the bad guys here because they only refused Hamas accepting the ceasefire because they were like, "Wait a minute, all those hostages were supposed to be alive. We're only taking them back if they're all alive. And if any of them have died, then no deal, ever." Basically. So it's just like, there's nothing. So you're basically saying there's nothing that can be done. You're just going to genocide Hamas because we can't unkill people who have already died. So if they're already dead, then fuck it. Like, what's the point of ever even pretending like anything is going to ever happen on this?
Yeah, I mean, and Israel does barely pretend. They don't really pretend. They just say this isn't over until every last Hamas agent is dead. Not even like captured, like eliminated, which will never happen. They're never going to get all of them. So yeah, it is just a blank check to do what they publicly say they want to do constantly. Every fucking week, every day practically, some major figure is out there just saying the loud part even louder, essentially. It's a funny thing. Funny is the wrong word, but an interesting thing to notice is when you contrast when Israeli media is in English and then when it's in Hebrew, and like this massive gulf between the way they talk about this stuff. But even a lot of times the stuff that's just like in English is just like outright, admission of genocidal intent.
Well, in there you mentioned major figures. I just want to shout out Major Figures. Great hip-hop group. It's an old Rough Rider Nation. Signs the label. Anyways, there was something else in there, but that's all that matters. Just got to shout out Major Figures when you have the chance, because a lot of people don't talk about them. And they're really, and there's a reason why, because they literally never had any good songs.
Good shout out.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like, sort of slightly shifting gears, the New York Times just won a Pulitzer Prize for international reporting, which is insane considering what they've been doing lately. I mean, all the time, but like, especially lately with, they didn't submit that groundbreaking article, Screams Without Words, for some reason. I think the reason might have been because it was completely debunked and it showed like journalistic malpractice on their part. Also, it's cool that they get like this highest award for reporting when The Intercept had just found like their leaked memos that said that reporters couldn't use words like occupied territory, or even the word Palestine was supposed to be used very minimally. Don't use the word genocide. Don't use the word ethnic cleansing. where else? There's something really damning in that Intercept article I wanted to read real quick. So the Times memo outlines guidance on a range of phrases and terms. Blah, blah, blah. We should be very cautious. Words like slaughter, massacre, and carnage often convey more emotion than information. Think hard before using them in our own voice. Can we articulate why we are applying those words to one particular situation and not another? As always, we should focus on clarity and precision. Describe what happened rather than using a label. Despite the memo's framing as an effort to not employ incendiary language to describe killings, quote, on all sides, in the Times reporting on the Gaza war, such language has been used repeatedly to describe attacks against Israelis by Palestinians, and almost never in the case of Israel's large-scale killing of Palestinians. So back in January, The Intercept published an analysis of New York Times, Washington Post, and Los Angeles Times coverage of the war from October 7th through November 24th. The Intercept analysis showed that major newspapers reserved terms like slaughter, massacre, and horrific almost exclusively for Israeli civilians killed by Palestinians rather than for Palestinian civilians killed in Israeli attack. And they tally it up. So New York Times had described Israeli deaths as a massacre on 53 occasions and those of Palestinians just once. The ratio for the use of slaughter was 22-1, even as the documented number of Palestinians killed climbed to around 15,000. It's so fucked up when I read stuff that's just from a few months ago and compare the murdered numbers to today from then. It's oh man, remember back in the quaint days when it was only 15,000 people killed?
Yeah, when we were just getting started.
And then yeah. So basically, I mean, I don't know. You get the picture. It's a pretty
I think so.
Corrupt. Yeah, not only do you not get any sort of punishment for reporting this way, you get the highest achievement and honors bestowed upon you. So cool world we live in that way. Also, someone pointed out the way that the Pulitzer Prize, whatever committee described the brave journalists of Ukraine back in 2022 versus they gave these, what do they call it? Special citation and award. So this year they did give it to journalists and media workers covering the war in Gaza. So it wasn't even specifically to people in Gaza necessarily or to Palestinian journalists. But yeah, just the wording is so different. Here's what they said about the journalists of Ukraine. The Pulitzer Board awards a special citation to the journalists of Ukraine for their courage, endurance, and commitment to truthful reporting during Vladimir Putin's ruthless invasion of their country and his propaganda war in Russia. Despite bombardment, abductions, occupation, and even deaths in their ranks, they have persisted in their effort to provide an accurate picture of a terrible reality, doing honor to Ukraine and to journalists around the world. Compared with, in recent years, the Pulitzer Board has issued citations honoring journalists covering wars in Ukraine and Afghanistan. This year, the board recognizes the courageous work of journalists and media workers covering the war in Gaza. Under horrific conditions, an extraordinary number of journalists have died in the effort to tell the stories of Palestinians and others in Gaza. This war has also claimed the lives of poets and writers among the casualties. So the war claimed lives, as opposed to in Ukraine, where Vladimir Putin personally slit the throats of journalists. Anyway.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
And then another sort of Ukraine-Palestine comparison came up with the Eurovision contest happened recently, I guess. And during the... because that European country of Israel, the country that's always tried to claim that it's
yeah, they always say it's the only democracy in Europe.
In Europe, right?
That's what people say all the time.
So yeah, Israel was it was invited. In 2022, Russia was banned from the contest and remains banned to this day. And but Israel can bring their people in to the contest, the fun singing contest. Little bit of waves were made because like people basically booed during the Israeli singers' performance. And as much as I'm like all for that, I did hear some like sort of activists saying that like maybe it would be like better use of activism would have been to just like if you could get. I mean, it's more unrealistic though, but he was saying like if like the whole country of England would just like pull its or whatever like dissenting countries would just boycott the whole thing. But anyway. And so this thing about Biden, like, like some people are trying to paint it like, wow, he's being really brave now by like, he's talking tough to Israel. It's like, he's so not. I mean, I already kind of covered that, but these lunatics
he told them, he said, if you don't do Rafah.
Yeah,
Jack,
he said don't do.
And if you do, then I won't.
He said don't do Rafah. And
won't.
in the interview, the last interview where he was talking about that, they had already blown up and killed a bunch of fucking people in Rafah. And he's like, if they, and then the language shifted though. It was because the interviewer was like, well,
if they do a complete invasion of Rafah, we'll stop all offensive weaponry sales to them.
But then it changed even more specifically to like it's not in the population centers yet, whatever that means.
Oh, perfect. Right.
So yeah, it's just moving the goalposts.
Even though they say that like something like 80% of the population of Gaza is in Rafah.
Yeah.
It's like it's not in the population centers yet of Rafah, where 80% of the people are. Anyways.
Feels
like at that point it's got to all be population center, right?
You'd think so, but I mean, God, like Gaza itself is so small. Like we're talking about just like a small, like not even the largest city within Gaza. Like it's something the third largest city or something. Like just in terms of size. But so like these lunatic like parliament members and so on, like just just frothing at the mouth fucking Israeli lunatics. They're like it's so funny how quickly they turn on Biden is my point, and turn on the US when the US like makes even the slightest sound of like we're not going to fully 1000% support you, even though they have to know that that's just like, it's an election year and Biden is just like being told he has to like make some symbolic gesture and that's all it is. But they still freak out and are like, fuck Biden. But anyway, this woman in parliament, she just like starts screaming her head off about how like, oh, you're going to take away our precision missiles? Well, then we're going to use our imprecise missiles because we got a lot of those left. Like on the floor of the fucking Knesset. Like it's just can't fucking make this shit up. Also, I believe the day, I'm pretty sure it was the same day, Holocaust Remembrance Day, was when they officially invaded Rafah. And then also Biden gave a weepy speech about October 7th and continued still. Like, I shouldn't be shocked, but I'm actually kind of shocked that he's still talking about shit that has been utterly disproven, like the mass rapes. He's just saying it.
Yeah.
Just saying it. Like, he didn't actually say 40 beheaded babies. I guess we can call that progress. He set that one aside finally. But anyway, I mean, all right, here, this one's just kind of funny. College anti-Israel agitators could be sent to Gaza under new House GOP bill. Yeah, the GOP's been up to some fucking hilarious shenanigans.
Some doozies lately, for sure.
I don't have this on the list, but I absorb all this fucking info, so I remember it. But they wrote like basically a threatening letter to the International Criminal Court because there's like some rumblings that like they might actually issue arrest warrants for like Netanyahu, etc. Which of course they won't anyway. But basically, the Republicans in America sent like this joint letter to the International Criminal Court, being like, you better not, don't even think about it, leave our BB alone. It's just very mafia-like. But anyway, a new House Republican bill would send any person charged and convicted for illegal activity on a college campus to Gaza for at least 6 months. Rep. Andy Ogles of Tennessee. Hey, that's the guy who said "kill them all" that we played on the show once when he was being confronted by protesters. He said, in reference to Palestinian children, he said, "I think we should kill them all. Is that what you want to hear?" Anyway, him alongside some other dumb fucks. God, this is a Fox News article, and it shows several of those protests have turned violent with clashes between police and activists, leaving out the fact that like the clashes were like ignited largely by mobs of just like Proud Boys and fucking regular old, Zionists initiating violence first. But anyway, yeah, just, I mean, how the fuck did they, I mean, what an insane bill. What else is there to say about it? Like 6-month community service sentence in Gaza. We're going to send you to a war zone. If you broke a window in the quad, you go into Rafah.
You're done. Yeah.
What a crazy thing. It's just funny to me when I remember like, oh yeah, like Congress people can just fucking write any insane bill they want. Max Blumenthal had his comment on that story was, let's see here. House GOP troglodytes introduce a bill to establish a government-sponsored Venceromus Brigade. I don't even know what that is. I'm dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not dumb. I just don't know what that is. Anyway, government-sponsored something for American students in Gaza. I look forward to seeing this free program deepen bonds of solidarity between U.S. activists and occupied Palestinians. So, in other words, bring it on, motherfuckers.
That's right. We're going to put a boot in your ass.
Another just wacky idea, or as Ken Klippenstein described it, truly one of the most crackhead ideas I've ever seen. There's an article in the Washington Post. This is just like a snippet of it that he did a screenshot of, but it says, but student protesters could try a different tactic, one that doesn't seem to have been found, one that doesn't seem to have, I read that correctly, this is just poorly written. One that doesn't seem to have been found any traction amid the volley of demands. They could become investors in the U.S. defense contractors or other companies they want to influence. So if you're protesting the military-industrial complex and its specific actions, what you should do is invest in that very thing, with your money.
Well, yeah, because it's like a good guy with a meme, right?
Yeah. They go on to say that would allow them to become activist investors and push for the changes they want to see from inside as investors. I would love to see that as a public policy professor. I would be fascinated by any student group that did that. Truly the finest minds at work. All right. And one last thing about this awful stuff. And I'll play it in the form of a clip here. This is renowned, kind of all-around anti-war activist Medea Benjamin confronting a horrible person named Brian Mast, who is an American who's a congressman, but he served in the IDF at one point. He's just a real diehard APAC derangement addict. His legs got blown off in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. So you see him walking with his prosthetic legs, and normally I would not. You know what? I'm still not going to make fun of the way he looks for that. I'm above that. Yeah, I'm above that. But when you hear what he has to say, you'll maybe see why one would be tempted to like take a cheap shot at his appearance, because he's just fucking terrible. And Medea Benjamin begins by saying, now that Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire. It's kind of hard to hear in the beginning, but that's what she says.
Now that Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire, do you think Israel should agree?
I think Israel should go in there and kick the shit out of them. Just absolutely destroy them, their infrastructure, level anything that they touch. Clear enough?
Congressman, the world is calling for a ceasefire. You used to say Hamas won't agree to a ceasefire. Hamas had just agreed. It was a proposal put forward by Egypt, Qatar. You know, CIA Director William Burns has been there negotiating.
You know what? If there's an American held or somebody else being held, there should be every expectation that Americans come and kill them as well. If there's an American being held, we should go kill the people that are holding them.
Why are you so hateful?
It's not hateful.
It is, because my people are Palestinian. You're killing my people with our tax dollars. And you saying that
Those
everything
should associate themselves with terrorists. They shouldn't vote terrorists into office like Hamas.
Israel is the terrorist.
Palestinian Islamic
Israel is the
terrorist.
terrorist.
Martyrs Brigade, Lions Den, Fatah, all those terrorist organizations.
We say to you
are
every
part of
single
Palestinian
time,
people.
majority of people are children. They're the ones that are bearing the brunt.
Just because you say it doesn't make it true, which is what your
believe that
concept.
it's children?
Let me say this very clearly. I literally don't believe a word that you say.
Well, I think that you are a heartless, soulless, cruel man. And today is Holocaust
From you,
Remembrance Day
we'll
for
take
my
that as a compliment.
people, my people, Jewish people. And I am saying, as a Jew, we said never again, and it's happening now. We say
You are
never
so
again.
hateful and disgusting. It's a shame. You are a crime against humanity.
I mean, yes, she was right when she said it's a crime against humanity.
Yeah, so that's Brian
correct.
Mast, fucking Third Reich looking motherfucker with robot legs, who says kill them all, and doesn't believe that. I mean, how could
I don't even know what part of it he doesn't believe.
she said the
You know,
majority?
that's the part
the
that's-
majority
yeah, it's like,
of
what
the
is he saying? He doesn't believe.
the majority of people that are being killed are children, and he's like, just because you say it doesn't make it true. And then I don't believe anything you say, and yeah. So that's just and that's just
Pretty cool.
some of the many things went on this week regarding all this bad shit.
Let's see. Where is he? He's a representative
Yeah.
in Florida. What was I gonna
Florida
say? Oh, no.
man says children are terrorists.
Children are not people. Yeah, but it's Florida, so there's really nothing you can do. They're not going to do better. Anyways.
Well, to not end on that like totally down note, let's we've got two stories I think we can kind of rattle off quickly here. First is from a lady that's been in the news recently, notably for writing a memoir or whatever, where she mentions like very cruelly killing a dog, which I think, I don't know, people that listen to this show have probably already heard about that. But the other thing that she wrote in her book, I should say who she is. What is it? Kristi
Noem. That's the name. Kristi Noem.
She also claims to have like met with and like stared down bravely Kim Jong-un. Yeah.
The tiny terrorist.
Which is like basically both like conservatives and liberals are like completely turning on her, and there've been some funny like news show appearances she's made where she's just like she's kind of freaking out because I think she must realize that like her chances of getting the vice presidential nomination from Trump is next to like nil now. And like we were saying at the beginning of the episode about what's his face, RFK, this also feels like a thing where it's like, you know, it's not even doesn't even necessarily be like conspiratorial. It's just it can like organically arise that it's just decided like this person doesn't cut it anymore, so now we're gonna like devote a bunch of coverage to making her look fucking stupid and discredit her that way. Because like even on Fox News, like, you know, they're like, I guess they're more like nice to her, but she can't spin her way out of this shit basically. So she just ends up making a fool of herself. I was gonna play a clip, but I don't know. We gotta get out of here. We're going pretty long.
Yeah, who cares?
One aspect though that I thought was funny
Seriously.
was that like the way she keeps changing the story about the Kim Jong-un thing is like, because they actually removed it from her book because it's so like obviously factually untrue. But she's like, well, I did go to the DMZ, and it's like, motherfucker, anyone can go to the DMZ. It's like a tourist spot.
Yeah.
She probably didn't even do that, but
no, probably not.
She probably didn't, because if she did, she would know that, like, oh yeah, you just like pay like $100 and you go on like a day trip on a fucking tour bus to the DMZ. Then she went on Newsmax, you know, which is like, yeah, I guess like a more hard right outlet than Fox, right? So the host there tried to give her some sort of out with an insane theory that maybe her book editor was a liberal plant, you know, a spy inserted there to insert these crazy stories into her book. And you know, I guess she's not so dumb that she went along with that. She was like, no, I wrote those things, but just the desperation.
Yeah, it was just pretty good.
He's like, this doesn't sound like the Kristi Noem that I know. She would never make up such crazy shit. She's like, no, which actually just makes her look worse, because then she has to deny. She has to be like, no, I made up that crazy shit.
Yeah, I'm nuts.
But yeah, so she's basically having like multiple meltdowns on her like kind of media tour / book tour thing, whatever, and she's getting it from all sides, so to speak. And then maybe finally continuing with I don't know, lunatic conservatives in America, token Indian Republican man. What's his fucking? I never know his last name, and it's not because maybe it's hard to say.
Ramaswamy.
Yeah, okay, Vivek, I'll call him. He did some.
It
like,
rhymes with cake. Actually, you're even saying that wrong. It's Vivek. It rhymes with cake.
Vivek rhymes with cake, and
it also rhymes with snake.
He did like some he interviewed Ann Coulter, or maybe she interviewed him. I don't even fucking know. Whatever. It was just like on YouTube or whatever. But Ann Coulter is someone who I forget exists constantly. Like, I thought she's just like a forgotten relic, but she pops up every now and again.
She was like the proto Red Scare.
Ann Coulter.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
She was doing the Red Scare thing before them. She was just doing the same thing.
As
good-looking lady who says fucked up shit.
I've said this on the podcast before. I think she looks sort of Frankensteinish, but that's just me.
Sure.
Anyway, she said, "No, you know what? This is very short.
You're gonna try to let her speak for herself.
It's 30 seconds. Okay, and clip commence."
You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
That's right.
I'm sure when they got back to that, she made it all right. But
yeah, she made a good point. It wasn't just like blatant, overt racism. Of course not.
And now, like, the funny thing about this story isn't that Ann Coulter said something like that, because that's like you said, her bread and butter, her shocking contrarian whatever takes. No, the funnier part is how much Viv Cake just took it. It was like such a massive cuckening. I think I said so fucking cucked. It was practically pornographic. Let's see. Brianna Joy Gray has some like commentary on this, where she says, notice how both Vivek and Coulter keep bringing black people into this. Coulter with her, you'll let me call you articulate, unlike those oversensitive blacks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part.
You're allowed to call
that. So
Indians
It
articulate.
was like a double racism, right? So like she basically did, because there was that thing. It was a Biden thing. Biden called Obama like articulate and clean and something like that, like back in the day.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
It's like he's one of the clean, articulate ones.
Yep.
And that, like, I mean, that obviously has, anyway.
Sure, yeah. You're not supposed to say that. Like, everyone knows that. You're not supposed to say that.
Vivek is basically, like, defending Ann Coulter, though, like, on Twitter, and, like, her saying that about him. And then also defending her remark about articulate and how you can't say that about American blacks, as she put it. He writes, "Here's a crazy thought. I believe in having respectful conversations with people I disagree with on the left and the right. It's ironic to see this coming from, shit, I don't even know who he's responding to. Whatever. Who didn't say a peep about black on Asian violence during COVID. Was that weakness or fear? Probably both. I guess I should have read what he was responding to there first. Some guy, Ted Liu? I don't know how to pronounce the name. Sorry. I wasn't surprised that Ann Coulter made a racist statement about Vivek. What surprised me is the weakness and lack of self-respect of Vivek. He's actually promoting this episode and praising the person who spewed raw racism to his face. I feel sorry for him. Oh, this was like an ongoing back and forth. Oh yeah, sorry. This is like total fucking backwards Memento shit. Sorry, but it works.
Oh, good.
So that was in response to Vivek saying, Ann Coulter told me flat out to my face that she couldn't vote for me, quote, because you're an Indian, even though she agreed with me more than most other candidates. I disagree with her, but respect she had the guts to speak her mind. It was a riveting hour. The Truth podcast is back.
It's good that, you know, she was willing to just be openly racist.
So like,
you know?
that's
I think that's good.
That's what I was searching for. That's the ultimate like cucked part of it. That tweet. It's like, I respect her for it.
I think it's good and respectable that she's willing to say that, like, I allow my racism to override my judgment.
It's been a hell of a show. Been a hell of a journey, guys. From
the ups and downs, mostly downs.
From diapers to sailors to fucking genocide and back again. Let's throw in some recommendations and skedaddle. What do you say?
Sounds good.
You have anything in mind?
I guess the Jinx season 2 came out. They're like 3 episodes in. I don't know how much longer they're going. It's crazy that they like did a season 2 like more than 10 years after season 1.
I didn't even know that existed. I'm gonna watch that. I was like everybody else, and I really liked that series.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because I don't blame them because they switched the song, which like of course, but like part of what made the first Jinx was that song. That's just like such an iconic song. And, you know, whatever.
I'm having trouble remembering it off the top of my head, but I'm sure once
It's the one. It's, you know, it's like pretty well. It's popular. You hear it. It stands out, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, either way, like, again, like I said, they're not going to use the same one for the new season. Yeah. Fresh Blood by Eels. You know that song? Eels.
I do know.
It's like the only song that anyone cares about that. Yeah. Anyways, but it's like I said, it's just crazy. It's a whole fucking new world, and they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna do a new season of this show from like again over 10 years ago."
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Like, is it? It must be like updating, like what?
Yeah. It's like he's arrested. He's in prison now.
Yeah.
They're like doing the new trial. Yeah. It's completely different. But yeah, that's it.
Cool. I'm gonna check that out for sure. I didn't even know that was in the works or whatever, so I'll recommend if you want more updates on war crimes and Israel and so on, I recommend a media figure named Owen Jones, who I accidentally called Owen Benjamin on a recent episode. He's a journalist, you know, he's an independent journalist. I mean, I think, I don't know. I don't really know his credentials. He's really good at what he does. So check out the link to Owen Jones or just search his name and you'll find all of his stuff. And then another independent journalist who I really like, who I think is, as much as we just both talked shit about Instagram, I think her only online presence is on Instagram. Rama Zain, Zein. She's Egyptian, and she's really good at what she does as well. I discovered her through like Katie Halper's show and like Useful Idiots and stuff like that. She guests on things like that. She went on like Piers Morgan kind of very recently and took everybody to task for their bullshit. And she's awesome. She doesn't hold back. She's like the Farha Khalidi of the serious journalism world.
Definitely. I get it.
They're both good at like going into the lion's den, like where you're just surrounded by fucking evil and your enemies, and fearlessly telling them what's up. So it's cool to see stuff like that. And that's it for that.
Wonderful.
We have a Discord. Check out the Discord. We have a show description for every episode. Check that out. That's where you find all the stuff, like our website, like Twitter, and so forth. Also, if you want more of Tim, you can find Tim at
ROH Dutch and on Twitter, X, the everything site. And then the main thing is violentpeople.co, Violent People Podcast Network. From there, just that's where you get everything. That's where you get the information you need, is violentpeople.co.
In the episode description, folks. Okay, and like I always say, Israel must stop dropping 2,000-pound dumb bombs on Rafah and drop 2,000-pound dumb John Fettermans instead. He really believes in the cause and is willing to sacrifice his very ogre body and ogre soul. Also, I shot Kim Jong-un for eating my chickens and met my dog at the DMZ and said, "Chancellor, tear down this zone." Good night and good luck and good morning, Vietnam.
Hell yeah.
Oh, my mouth hurts.
The first voice recording was made in 1860. It was a 10-second fragment of the French folk song Au clair de la lune recorded by inventor Edward Léon Scott de Martinville. But who will make the final voice recording and when? What will it be? Who will hear it?